did you find that period where it was obviously a bit of uncertainty? Obviously heading home must have been nice, but then coming back, how was a couple of weeks and how's it been now back to training?
Yeah, it's been an interesting period. I mean, we went over to Melbourne and under the proviso that wouldn't happen, and been back for a couple of days, and then we got told we had another 12, 13 days in quarantine, which wasn't ideal, but it's the way it goes, and we've faced a lot of challenges this year. So I got through it. We got all the boys back today, about 4 or 5 extra guys back this morning to train from now on, and definitely felt the tiredness and the soreness last week. Could barely move after Wednesday's first session on Wednesday, and enjoyed the weekend. Took it easy, but ready to go now. I think it's a different challenge for us, probably mentally more so, that pre-seasons are so much shorter now, and normally you come back in December and you've got a month to slowly build physically, but also mentally as well. And whereas this year we did match simulation stuff on Friday, which was even tougher for myself and Duggo, who was only our second session back. So guys are all in good shape, but taking a little bit to get used to, but it's the same across the whole comp, and whoever adjusts quicker and better will play really well.
How are you finding that adjustment? Obviously, your fitness and that's a big strength of yours, but we're talking about coming back, and we look ahead, we saw it last year with fixture crams and all sorts of changes, whatever could happen this year. What have you learned from that experience last year you're going to try and take into this year?
I think to expect the unexpected a bit, and I think maybe this year with the shortened pre-season, maybe guys across the whole comp are mentally fresher later in the year, and you might see an even better standard of a final series. You might have more guys available at that time of year than perhaps we might going back previous pre-seasons, where some teams that don't make the 8 start in mid-November or whatever, and sometimes by halfway through the year they've lost quite a few guys. So it'll be interesting to see the availability and maybe the standard across the whole comp might rise with pre-season starting in January now.
Down to 75 rotations and back to 20 minutes. You barely left the field in practice or game last year. Do you think that's going to have to be the way you have to play because of your fitness, that you'll sacrifice your rotation for others even though the games are longer?
I think so. Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the reduction of the quarters for the season last year, whilst I totally understood the reasons why, but I'm happy with the way it's gone personally, with a little bit of a bias from now on. And yeah, that's the thing with everyone's midfields. You've got certain guys that are good endurance guys, some guys are more burst players like Shuey, Yowie, Kelly, those guys that might need to go off a little bit more. So I might take a little bit of the slack with those guys so they can have probably 1 or 2 rotations a quarter, but I still need to go off as well, and especially when you've got a 30-degree day in Perth on a Saturday afternoon, it's not the easiest thing in the world. So it might vary from week to week. I found the night games naturally you can probably stay out there a little bit longer, and the breaks between each goal last year was a little bit longer for TV purposes and that. So that allowed me and a lot of other guys to catch a bit of breath back and able to go again. So yeah, it'll be interesting. It's tough for the strength and conditioning guys at the club to figure it out and determine what sort of drills we need that are going to replicate the games, and obviously with a shorter pre-season as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what teams adjust, and I think even during a year coaches might tweak a few things to get the most out of guys, and hopefully you've got the best guys on the field as often as possible.
Do you think it's going to trend back towards a bit more of an endurance athletes being advantaged this year with the production of interchange and
I think so. I think definitely the first few weeks it'll feel like the games will go forever, I reckon. I think compare it to the first few games of last season where the games felt like they were over in no time. I think these first few rounds especially will feel like they go forever. But yeah, I mean, I think the AFL want to speed the game up a bit and make it a little bit more open. I think that the longer quarters and the reduced rotations will help that a bit. But yeah, coaches are always finding ways and players to win, and that's the most important thing we live by. And it'll be interesting to see the trends that happen from there.
Did you become conditioned to those 16-minute quarters on the end of last season, or did you end those games feeling like you just had more in the tank to give?
I think it's all you work it up mentally and physically that whenever you finish, you're absolutely buggered.
Yeah.
So I think it might impact someone like Nick Nat a little bit, who I think those probably 16-minute quarters suited his profile really well, and whether we play another ruckman as well, or whether he goes one out is something that I'm sure the coaches are still working on. But it's probably the burst players, the short, sharp guys that it's probably going to take a little bit of time to get used to. But it's the same for everyone really. So it'll be interesting.
So instead of changes in selection day, what do you think was the most?
Oh yeah, I don't know. We've had a good history. Nick had obviously an amazing year last year, but in 2015 and 2018, we also had great years as well with Nick being the number one ruckman, albeit not playing in September in 18. So we've got a very strong ruck department. Obviously Hickey's gone to Sydney, but Vardy's a premiership ruckman. He's been very good for a long period of time, and probably didn't get a great run at last year with obviously the hub situation and not having any reserves footy to press your claim, but also he had a couple of injury issues as well. So Vard's ready for a big year. Callum Jamison's still working on getting stronger for a 19-year-old. Bailey Williams showed a few really good signs as well. And what do we do with? Does Oscar Allen do a bit of ruck, or is he more of a forward? So we feel like we're blessed with ruck options, and coaches will figure out what's the best for 120 minutes.
Guys like Oscar and Bailey, when they've sort of been touting sort of forward ruck options, that you've seen sort of any indication from trading there, like that's what we're looking to get with them, or is it going to have to be like two punch on one with a genuine outcome?
Yeah, it's hard. I haven't seen Bailey. This is Bailey's first day, so I actually haven't said hello to him yet. But Oscar, I think Oscar's a natural forward, and he's going to be a key player for us for a long period of time. Even he is now, but even once JK finishes up, whenever that is. So I'll probably see him as more of a forward, but he also has a good jump and is very athletic in the ruck. So yeah, it all depends on, I guess, how many minutes Nick plays and how much percentage. If he plays 60%, you probably need another ruckman to play that second role a bit. If he plays 70, 80, you can probably play forward. So that's all going to be that's all going to play out, and we probably won't have sort of 3 or 4 weeks now till we start playing games. So yeah, it's going to be interesting what happens from here.
Just another quick one on your role. You had a really good year regardless of the short quarters, and we saw other women in the comp, the Pluggage and Menegola really stand out, but missed out on all Australian team, but big guys who probably were more suited to the inside midfield role. Do you think women still have a respect for the competition at the moment?
Oh, I think they do. I think Sam was very, very unlucky. I thought he was up there with one of the best midfielders in the comp, let alone I think he was definitely the best wingman in the comp. So I think he definitely deserved to be in, and McCluggage has been great for the last couple of years especially. So, who knows if that'll change next year with selection, but I mean, we can't control that. But it's good to see that there are several guys that are nailing that specialist position, and sometimes in the years gone by they probably haven't got that recognition. But Sam especially was unbelievable in getting back into defence, which is a big role for a wingman, but also kicked a lot of goals as well. So that's something we all pride ourselves on as midfielders, and probably an area where I think we struggled as a group last year, but we've been okay in previous years. So our forwards kick most of the goals, which is, I guess, good in some ways, but we probably need to kick a few more next year as well as a whole collective.
Just back on your quarantine period, what did you do to keep fit?
Yeah, it was different this year because during the season, when we had it a couple of times during the season, we could still be at the club training from 9 till 4 and then go home and just sort of have the nighttime period in quarantine, obviously. But this was all day, every day for 14 days. So had a watt bike, one of those watt bikes delivered, obviously legally into the house, and haven't spent too much time in rehab, touch wood. So the guys in rehab normally are very good at using those, and you sweat up like no tomorrow doing one of those, and had a couple of weights to use. But yeah, it was a much slower time in quarantine than it was during the season. We were able to go here for the whole day, but put a fair shift in watching the cricket for definitely all 5 days of the Sydney test a couple of weeks ago. But good to be back, and you appreciate the great lifestyle that Perth is, and you appreciate the times where you hang out with your mates, because sometimes, like this year, and probably more so over in Melbourne, where I was able to go back and see family and friends, they haven't been able to do that until probably the last couple of months. So you get a good perspective of how tough it's been, especially over there.
Yeah, so just bike, couldn't really do any running?
Nah, couldn't do any running, couldn't do any kicking. So I think kicking's probably the main thing coming back last week, you don't do any kicking for 2 weeks, and then you're at that risk if you do kick too many footies that your quads and your hips can get pretty tight. So it's that fine line for the coaches to. We still need to catch up, but you can't push us too fast and too hard because we're playing, as I said, playing games in 3 or 4 weeks.
How are you feeling about another year, or at least the start of it, with the uncertainty around waters and fixtures? I mean, we know here that as soon as there's a case interstate, Premier's going to shut the waters pretty quick. How are you feeling about the potential of more time clubs or travel in that sense, and less time in Perth? That was
Yeah, I guess once you do the novelty thing once last year, it's hard to. I still find it hard to fathom that it could happen again this year, but in reality, it's quite a big chance to happen again. And we learnt so much as a team, both times in the Gold Coast that we had, that if we do it again, we'll be bigger and better and play better, no doubt. And I think in a way, you almost got to expect that it might happen at some stage. And whilst we've got the fixture all sorted, that might change. But yeah, as I said, we learnt a lot, and I think it'll be better for. Better for last year's happenings.
In terms of you guys getting better before this year, last year was so unusual. Is it really game plan oriented for you guys in terms of what you put out on the field, or is it coping with the potential unknown? I think that period on the Gold Coast early was quite costly for you guys in the end.
Yeah, it was. I think mainly on field, just the consistency. I think consistency in lines, consistency as a midfield group, but as a whole team collective. I think. Our good games, as we saw at home, mostly those 8 weeks we had at home, we played some great footy, as good as anyone in the whole comp. But early doors in the Gold Coast and a few games towards the back end of the season, we probably played inconsistency and won a couple of games whilst being very scratchy. And to be one of the better teams like Richmond, like Geelong have been for several years, you need to have that brand where you lower your gap between your best and your worst, and I think that was pretty evident as a midfield group as well. Our best games were really good, and our bad games were really left it up to chance. And I guess probably the Collingwood game is an example of the final where it's up to chance a bit, and you might win those games by a point, or you lose them by a point, and our season was done. It was probably a little bit of a reflection of our season. A bit we struggled to get inside 50s. We were very efficient once we got in there. Our forwards are very dominant and very good in their air especially, but if you don't get enough supply, it's hard to, as I said, you can win a few games, but it's hard to have consistently good performances, I think.
You guys eagerly anticipate what happens with Willie? Are you sort of anxious about it or anything like that? Have you spoken about it at all as a playing group at all?
Oh, we haven't really. Look, it's been a long time now, and I think Simo said quite a bit on it last week. Hopefully the result comes pretty quickly. We don't know when. We don't know how long, if at all, we'll have Willie. We hope so. We miss him as a player and love him as a person, and no doubt he's been doing it pretty tough for a while, but it'll all pan out how it does. But hopefully we can get him back soon, and we'd love him to play again pretty quickly.
Building back, you mentioned sort of the shorter pre-season before. How's he tracking it? Is he finding it hard to hold himself back and tick it off? Because obviously he's a real sort of competitor, but with a groin like that, you've got to go through certain protocols to get back in place.
Oh yeah, he's definitely improving each day, so that's positive. And I think for him with that injury, it's the mental challenge of it. And I've been lucky to not have anything like that. Shuey had a bit of that, I think, in his first couple of years. So it's a tough one, but yeah, I can imagine some days you feel better than others. Mentally, you wake up, you might be feeling fresh, and you're not sure how long that's going to last for. And I think he's really turned the corner in that side of things. So as I said, games in 3 or 4 weeks, he'll progress slowly, and I'm sure there's probably not a real set time frame on when he's back, but we want him back when he's 100%, because he's one of the best midfielders in the comp when he is fit and firing, and we feel like even if he's not there for those practice games, we've got a midfield that's deep enough to cover.
Andrew, just on, you mentioned Luke Shuey as well. You said before that old man injury with the calf. Have you been a bit of stick about that, and also how's he looking for this week?
Yeah, a bit of advice from Shannon Hearn, the old man calf. He's had a few of those in his time. Kennedy's had a few. Shuey's 30 now, I think. So I think is it 30 when you get called a veteran? I think I've seen a couple of times I've been called a veteran at 28, but I think it's sort of, I feel like it's, in a way, it's been a bit of a common thing for Shuey to probably have a couple of niggles at this time of year, and he always finds a way to be ready for round one. So, as I said before, sometimes mentally, I know it's not ideal mentally for him at the moment, but pre-seasons are pretty long, albeit this one's a little bit different. That sometimes if you do miss a couple of weeks here and there, it's not the worst thing, because, as I said before, sometimes you get to that 3/4 of the way through the back end of the season, and you might be a little bit mentally fresher than some guys that have done every single pre-season session since the start of January this year. So he'll be back. He's a pro, and looking forward to him having another really good year, and hopefully playing a few more games than he did in 2020.